Sometimes the worst day of your life turns out to be the day that saves you. Because life doesn't always explain itself. It breaks you, so it can rebuild you stronger. This is one such story of a man who lost everything and found himself in the fire. Steve was 28, a brilliant software engineer living in California, earning well, respected, admired. He had the car, the job, the apartment with a view, and an engagement ring hidden in his drawer, ready for Emily, the love of his life. He believed life was finally falling into place. But sometimes, when everything seems perfect, life flips the page without warning. One morning, his boss called him in and said, "We're shutting down, I'm sorry." Just like that, 4 years of hard work vanished. No backup, no warning, no direction. Still, he smiled and said to himself, "It's fine, I'll find another job." He didn't know then, life had a bigger plan. Weeks turned into months. He sent out resumes, attended interviews, heard the same rehearsed line again and again. "We'll get back to you." They never did. His savings dried up. Bills piled high. Emily began to grow distant, her calls shorter, her tone colder. And one evening she said quietly, "I can't keep waiting for things to get better. Maybe we should take a break." She walked away, and with her, so did the last bit of hope he had left. That night, Steve sat on the floor of his empty apartment, watching the city lights flicker outside his window, and whispered, "Why me? What did I do wrong?" But there was only silence. He had lost everything. The job, the girl, the certainty. And yet, somewhere in that silence, life was setting something else in motion. One late evening, tired of staring at the same walls, Steve stepped out for a walk. Rain drizzled over California's quiet streets. He walked aimlessly past shuttered cafes and glowing street lamps, until the smell of smoke cut through the air. He looked up. The top floor of an old building across the road was on fire. Panic spread. People shouted. A woman screamed from a window, "My son! He's still inside!" Without thinking, Steve ran. Neighbors tried to hold him back, but he pushed through the smoke-filled stairwell. Heat clawed at his skin. He could barely breathe, but he kept climbing. At the end of the corridor, a small boy, maybe 5 years old, stood frozen, crying near a burning doorway. Steve wrapped his jacket around the boy, lifted him in his arms, and ran. The ceiling cracked. A beam crashed behind him. He jumped down the last steps as glass shattered around them. When he burst out of the building, firefighters had just arrived. The mother fell to her knees, crying as she held her child. Steve collapsed on the wet pavement, coughing, trembling, but alive. Hours later, he woke up in a hospital bed. His arm was bandaged. The doctor said, "You're lucky, just mild burns." He felt a quiet relief. The next day, the boy's father came to visit. A calm, well-dressed man, eyes tired but kind. "I'm David," he said softly. "You didn't just save my son, you saved my whole world. Thank you isn't enough." Steve shook his head. "I just did what anyone would have done." David smiled, then asked softly, "So, what do you do now?" Steve hesitated, then told him everything. The job loss, the rejection, the loneliness, the night that changed everything. David listened quietly, his expression turning sober. He felt a deep sense of empathy and said gently, "You're not alone, Steve. I know what it's like to start over. I'll help you." Then he reached into his pocket, handed Steve a card, and said, "I invest in startups. If you ever need anything, call me." Then he left. That night, Steve stared at that card for a long time. Weeks later, as his arm healed, he kept thinking about people like him, talented, lost, waiting for a second chance. He started writing ideas in a notebook, a platform where people could relearn, reskill, and find new paths. He called it Reroute, because sometimes life doesn't end your journey, it just changes your direction. He worked alone from his apartment, coding at night, learning by doing. When the first prototype was ready, he reached out to David. They met at a small cafe downtown. After hearing the idea, David smiled. "You didn't just save my son that night, Steve. You reminded me what faith looks like. Let's build this together." And they did. Reroute launched quietly. A few users at first, then dozens, then hundreds. People who had lost hope found new skills, new jobs, new beginnings. One message said, "After years of trying, someone finally gave me a chance." Steve just sat there, staring at the screen, silent, smiling. For the first time, he understood this wasn't about building a company. It was about rebuilding people. Months later, standing by that same apartment window, Steve looked out over the California skyline. The same place he once sat in silence, broken. Only this time, he whispered, "Now I know why." Everything, the loss, the heartbreak, the fire, had led him right here. Maybe this story isn't just about Steve. Maybe it's about all of us. Because sometimes life breaks your plan to rebuild your purpose. So if everything's falling apart, remember, it's not your last step. It's just your chance to reroute.